8th grade. So this is the last part that I want to add to the Chapter 5, Section 7. Normally you would do this with a graphing calculator, but since no one has a graphing calculator, we're just going to kind of talk about it. The graphing calculator can calculate it for you. There is a way to do this by hand. I'm not going to make you do that. It is long, it is tedious, and there is this horrible formula that you have to use. So we're just going to talk about what it represents, and that's pretty much all we're going to touch on about it. So the last part of this section is what we call the correlation coefficient, and they give that the variable of r. So what does the correlation coefficient mean? When we see it, it's always going to range from -1 all the way up to +1. So it can be any number in between these two, in between -1 and +1. Depending on what it equals can change what your scatter plot and trend line would look like. Remember how I said you always want to have 2 points on your trend line? Sometimes that's all you have. Other times your line can hit a bunch of points on there. If all of the points lie on that line, then you have a really good line of best fit. So we're going to talk about what each of these values means and how it relates to your scatter plot. So if I have an R value that is anything greater than 0 all the way up to 1, this means I have a strong positive correlation or strong positive trend. Sometimes they use the word trend. That means that my line is moving in the positive direction, and I've got, the closer I get to 1, I've got a bunch of points on that line. So for example, if we were to do one like that. Alright, so let's imagine, you know, here's my x-axis, here's my y-axis. Let's imagine something like this is my scatter plot. I don't know what it's measuring. Doesn't matter. Alright? And I have a trend line going right through there. Okay? This might be an R value of, I don't know, 7/10. Okay? If I see this, that tells me, alright, it's going in the positive direction, and that line fits a good number of points because this is close to +1. We're not going to learn how to calculate this. All we're going to learn is what this value means when you see it. So if it's anywhere from greater than 0 up to +1, it means you have a strong positive correlation. If, however, it's less than 0, but and goes down to -1, this means I have a strong negative correlation. So here's what that would look like. And these are kind of like the examples that we glued in at the beginning of these notes. So if my scatter plot looked something like that, I can see if I tried to make a line through it, it would look something along those lines. Now for this one, my R value might be, and again, I'm just making up a number here. This isn't exactly what it is. But my R value might be, I don't know, -2/10. Okay? This number tells me, oh, okay, I'm moving in the negative direction because it's -2/10. But it's kind of close to 0, not all the way down to -1, closer to 0. So I've got these, what we call outliers. All right? If you have a bunch of outliers, that is going to affect your R value because your line is going to try to accommodate for as many points as possible, but like let's say I had something, you know, all the way out here, it can't hit that line, that point, no matter how hard it tries. So these outliers are going to affect this. Now let's say I had something that looked like this. Alright, and I've just got points all over the place. Okay, this is kind of like that third example we did at the beginning of the notes. These have absolutely nothing to do with each other. Whatever, you know, quantities they are comparing, they don't have anything to do with each other. They're not lining up in a positive way. They're not lining up in a negative way. this would be R is 0. Okay, there's just no line that is going to fit that. This means I have absolutely no correlation or trend.